Hello again, Mrs. Brown's class. This is Ranger Ryan coming to you from my office. Again, I hope everybody is staying safe out there, making sure you're washing your hands, keep your masks with you, and everybody's doing the right thing and staying home. And I know that part of staying home is doing this really great project with Mrs. Brown. So I just wanted to stop by and talk to you guys a little bit more about the cool National Park Service and some of the neat aspects of the Park Service. So, one of my favorite things about the National Park Service, which again was created about 100 years ago, a little over 100 years ago in 1916, by 1916, most of the eastern side of the United States had been developed. If you think about the 13 original colonies, the start of America during our Revolutionary War, the eastern United States is where we tended to settle. It wasn't until about the 1850s that we really started moving westward. Once we moved westward, we started really finding all these beautifully diverse, wonderful landscape places like deserts, temperate rainforests, the Rocky Mountains, the Sierra Nevada mountains, all sorts of different types of ecosystems that we really just didn't see in the eastern United States. So, by 1916, most of the western United States was still pretty barren, still pretty open with all those different types of land. So once we started naming Park Service sites in the western United States, we found that we were really focusing much more on the physical side of the Park Service. So places like Yellowstone, Yosemite, the Grand Canyon. Now, because the eastern United States has a lot more human interaction in that area, we tend to focus our parks a little bit more on the cultural or the historical side of things on the eastern United States. So think about things like Appomattox Courthouse, where the Civil War was ended, forts and monuments like Fort McHenry, all sorts of different places on the eastern United States. But in the western United States, bigger focus on those big, iconic landscapes. And if you remember before, we talked about places like Arches National Park in Utah, Crater Lake in Oregon, all sorts of really different types of lands out there. And it's because of the differences in those lands means that we have to manage those lands differently. As I'm sure you guys could think, water management is a little bit more of a priority in places like Arches or those desert locations than in places like California, where water does tend to be a little bit more found readily. So that means that all of us rangers have to have different types of specialties. So we have a variety of different rangers out there. I myself am what is known as an interpretive ranger. So I help to interpret the stories, the landscapes, the animals, all those other things out there for people like yourselves who maybe don't know. I'm kind of the educational ranger. There are law enforcement rangers, there's archaeology rangers, there are search and rescue, there are biologists and botanists. There's just a whole variety of different types of services or focal points that people can get into when they become a park ranger. And in some cases, we even have people who volunteer, students, retired folks. There's a whole list of different types of things that they do in the National Park Service. We usually like to tell people that if you have an interest, the Park Service has a need. Everything from computers to hospitality. I mean, you name it, park rangers do just about everything. There's a reason they call us a jack of all trades. So, some of the first parks that were established out west were established because of how unique they were. Yellowstone is a primary example of this. Even 40 years before the National Park Service was created, we recognized that that landscape was such a unique place that we needed to protect it and preserve it so that future generations could enjoy it. So, as citizens of the West, I'm sure you guys know that it's up to you to protect and preserve the lands that you enjoy. Now, living up in the beautiful mountains in Colorado, up near Nederland, I'm sure you guys hear lots of great things about fire warnings, making sure that we leave no trace. We do things like having good sound decision making when we're out there. So it's up to you to do that too. So for me, one of my favorite places is Arches National Park in Utah. My oldest son's name is Archer, and it's also his favorite park. He thinks it's named after him. Anyway, for me, it's just such a combination of beautifully unique landscapes combined with opportunities to do things from mountain climbing to hiking to parasailing hang gliding. There's just so many different things that you can do in Arches National Park, and it's such a unique environment. So, I leave it up to you now. It's up to you guys to find out about the different national parks in the western United States. I want you guys to find out more about your favorite places, things that interest you, and do a little bit of research yourself and see what kind of cool things you can find. With almost 420 different National Park Service sites, there's something for everybody out there. You guys stay safe. Hopefully, we'll talk to you again soon. Ranger Ryan out.